Okay, it's 7:04, we'll call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone. This is our first meeting of the month. It's a business meeting. And the first point on the agenda is our public comments. We encourage people who want to speak on issues of concern to them. We ask that you limit your remarks to 5 minutes, and I will let you know when 5 minutes is up so that we can move things along. So is there anyone who would like to?
Yep, three people. Scott Snyder first.
Good evening. It's been brought to my attention by my daughter that they're no longer allowed to change for gym class in 4th grade, 5th grade. I'm like, huh, that's pretty strange because it's always been that you did years ago when I was in school. And all of a sudden a letter comes home today stating that there are safety issues that they can't change and they don't have the staffing. We never had staffing when I was in school to change gym clothes. So the other big part of this whole thing is, you know, take any of us here, pants, long sleeve t-shirts, or long sleeve shirt, sweatshirt, you go run around in the gym for 30, 40 minutes, and you come out and see how many people pick on you because you stink. Because you can't change out of your dirty, sweaty clothes. And I think it's ridiculous that they have to wear those clothes all day long if their gym class is first thing in the morning. It's unacceptable. The children, my daughter's 11 years old, and they're at that age, they're starting to hit the puberty mark, and they're starting to be self-conscious about how they look and how they smell. And they walk around school the rest of the whole day smelling like body odor because they had gym and they can't change out of their clothes. Don't think it's fair to the child, nor it's not right. And it needs to be fixed. And all of a sudden today, we got a letter home today from the superintendent stating that we didn't have staffing. Well, people are starting to pay that don't live in the district. They're gonna have to pay to come here. Our tax money, I pay my taxes. I mean, I understand you guys got things that the tax money's allowed for, but it can't cost that much to have someone just to sit there and watch the kids change. And I don't think that's really comfortable. Having a stranger watch me change my clothes. That's, I don't agree with that. Having to have somebody stand there and hold your hand while these children change their clothes. They're 11 years old. And you know, it teaches them responsibility to bring their clothes to and from school, bring them home, wash them. It's not acceptable in my book. Not at all. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anna Foltz.
I just have a parent that couldn't make it today, and she wanted me to hand this in. Yep. And I also just wanted to...
You just come a little closer, it's just easier to hear you.
Yeah, sure. And I just wanted to more or less recap what he said. Like, I understand, yeah, I'm sure there's like safety issues with kids going in and messing around because being a bus driver and working
I'm
at
sorry,
the school.
what is your name?
Anna Foltz.
Anna.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so I know about the kids who they mess around and stuff. I have an aide, I'm a bus driver, I also work in the cafeteria, so I understand. And I understand that there's a lot of unsafe things that happen in the school. There's a lot of other things that are a lot more unsafe in that school than just that. So like everything that's unsafe in the school, like at the playground where there's only 2 aides to 3 third grade classes to two aides to 3 second graders, their classes. So we're short staffed just about everywhere when it comes to aides. I mean, the responsibility a bus driver has, there's a lot of things that can happen on that bus just as much as it can in the locker room. Upstairs in the swim room, same thing can happen just as much as it can down there, if not more dangerous because of the water, with the slipping and the floating around and there's nobody getting up there as well. So I understand like you want to take the 4th and 5th graders changing away and stuff, but we've already run into issues. I personally am running into issues because now my child's being talked to about the way he smells. So that makes me upset, which I grant you not everybody is going through at that age and stuff like that. But I also would like my kid to learn hygiene, good hygiene, with the fact that he needs to learn responsibility. And then the fact that if a child is messing around, that's punishment to everybody, all the 4th and 5th graders. Because that is something that they should be able to do, is get out of their sweaty clothes. And I can tell you right now, my child loves to play, and when he does, he sweats, and he sweats hard. And I'm sure there's a lot of other kids, maybe some do, maybe some don't, but they do. So, and I mean, can we figure something else out if we can't get staff? Is there something we can do to figure something out so that ways kids can change, or is there something we can figure out as a school family to figure this out so that everybody's happy? That way the kids don't have to go through this. Because as an aide, and I've been an aide for a while, we're short-staffed when it comes to aides. There's not enough aides, and there should not be 2 aides outside for recess with 50-something kids. That's more dangerous than going out there in that locker room. And so that's all I got. Thank you.
Heather Murphy?
Hi guys, y'all already know who I am. I'm just reiterating everything that they said. It doesn't necessarily, Shane is fine. He definitely needs to change. Shane's a big boy, he weighs in 180 pounds. He plays football, he plays basketball, he does it all. And boy, he smells like a hog when he's sweating. Man, I can't tell you, make him shower enough during football season, he's gross. I can't get the smell off of him. This is the age where these kids sweat. Nate plays football with my son, he's nasty, he's stinky too. He needs to shower. We're trying to teach these kids healthy hygiene. You know, we got bacteria and stuff already passed around enough as it is. They need the healthy hygiene. My daughter will be affected in a couple years when she hits, 4th and 5th grade. She's already obsessive. She has to change her socks 2 or 3 times a day because her feet sweat so bad. The option, I think, needs to be available. It's a rumor. I don't know if it's true or not, but there was an incident possibly with a kid that fell, hit his head as a potential liability for you guys. I understand that you're trying to take a precautionary. A middle ground that I think could be reached, or something close to it if you guys agree to it. If you're worried about liability, make the parents aware of that. Say, hey, listen, we might face a liability with this. If you want your kids to be able to change, can you sign this waiver that you're not gonna sue us if your kid's screwing off? Something, I don't care what it is. There's gotta be some type of a middle ground to keep you guys safe. If that's what you're trying to do, if that rumor's true, then great, I understand you gotta do what you gotta do. But our kids need the option to be able to be clean. There's a whole bunch of parents that haven't been here. They can't, they're at work, of course, we've all talked, obviously, because that's what we do. So there's a conversation that's been had. It affects a lot of kids, it can affect a lot of kids growing up, coming up, and it's just healthy hygiene, man. You see this? I take care of sick people all day, man. I teach my kids to be clean. It's an important thing, especially around here, we got a lot of farms. All right, thank you, appreciate it.
All right, well, thank you very much. I want to assure you that we will take into account the issues that you've raised and talk about them, and see if we can come up with a...
One more thing.
Go ahead.
So I just don't understand why this has been going on for 2 to 3 weeks. Now all of a sudden tonight, the letter was sent home. How come the letter wasn't sent home when this was all first started? That's what I would like to know.
And I'll take responsibility for that. I didn't think it was something that we had to do, and after I thought about it later, I did.
Okay.
That's fair.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay,
No
as I said, we will have some discussions about your concerns, and...
We're just worried about the bullying because it's already started.
Exactly.
And we know our kids
Yeah.
sing.
And I don't
We're
want
not
my,
ashamed.
listen, my
We
kids
hear you, and
listen,
like
my
I said,
kids get bullied.
we'll talk about the issues that you raised and see if we can come up with some response for you,
Okay,
okay?
I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Next point on the agenda is a presentation by David Bersaki from Berwick on the data protection officer. Everything we ever wanted to know, but we're afraid to ask.
10 minutes or less, right?
Just real quick, Dave came up a couple weeks ago just to talk about, I'll go back a little bit further. I think you guys know from, they came up to talk to the superintendents about a month and a half ago, and come down the line as their new 2D law, well, not new, the law's been 2014, and now they're starting to finally get around to what the responsibilities will be. Still not clear cut yet, and then
A little bit.
yeah, the NARIC is now coming out with some services to help us get through that. So I asked him to come through and come up here and talk to him a little bit about more of the information about it. Attached inside of your the board meeting is some notes that they gave me show you what a teacher would, what the school district would do and what the DPO would do through NARIC. That make sense?
Yep.
Go ahead. Thank you for coming up.
Great, thank you for having me. Just for some context, my role at the BOCES is the Chief Technology Officer, so I'm involved in all the central administration work and oversight, and part of the secure data center aspects of the NARIC, as well as overseeing the data security privacy service. Outside of my work, I'm also a board member at Burnt Hills Boston Lake, so I sit in the same seat you do twice a month, and we just had our CIO present to us the status of where they were at from inside the operation, kind of in the same context of this discussion. So I get it from kind of multiple sides, so just thought I'd share that with you. Before I talk about the shared DPO, I give a little more background to it. As was mentioned, it's been 5 years coming since the law was enacted. The regulations, as were discussed, are kind of just coming out. There's a couple of things that the district has to do, and one of them was to name a data protection officer. That was, I believe, done, or at least the person was voluntold that they were going to do it. So, all kidding aside, that's the very first thing that has to happen. The next thing that's going to happen when presumably your policy service, I don't know which one you may subscribe to, NISBA or Erie One, or maybe none, your district's going to have to adopt a policy acknowledging the compliance with Law 2D. So those are the first two things that are going to happen by July 1st, and that's really it so far. And when we say not much has happened, those are the two requirements that are actually out there. And I think the other thing to be assured of, and
Can I ask this question, are there any
Please.
guidelines in terms of the policy that you're?
There's a draft policy, I think, was just released. Just released.
So we sent the legal to look it over.
Yep, yep, so there's a draft. I'd seen it just pre-release because of our work with the state education. We couldn't share it, of course, so I've seen the draft language. And if you subscribe to a policy service, my operation, our school has NISBA, so I'm sure they're going to have one that we will have a required policy, and we'll modify it and adopt, I presume, in the next couple of months. So that is really the first two obligations that are had by the district. After that, the regulations call for a variety of things to happen. And in general, I'll talk in general terms, you're supposed to disclose to parents, have a disclosure about what you have, what you're going to share or not. You're going to have to disclose all the applications where we collect that type of data. There's an inventory that's got to happen. There's the compliance with the NIST cybersecurity framework. We don't have time to talk about what that is, but essentially it's a set of behaviors, controls that a district is supposed to implement in order to ensure everybody that you're protecting the data properly. And some of that comes in the form of policy, things like an inventory that is taken, which you already have for assets, but it goes now into data assets. There's going to be another component, for example, you have to demonstrate how you're protecting your systems through passwords. Well, you're already doing that, but are you doing it to the right standard? That's what I'm getting at. So there'll be a whole variety of people and technical controls that have to be met. I just think about that. There's 108 of those controls. And so we've named the person in the district, your high school principal, right?
Yes.
All right, so how much time does that person have to really get to know these things with intimate detail and understand how they get implemented, or even to make recommendations on how to have a conversation? They don't, right? They don't. By the way, I was gifted with the title of DPO for the BOCES, so I don't have time to, spend on all this, so I'm gonna have to have help. That help is being crafted internally. So this is our form of help, or one of them. So the shared data protection officer is, and actually to Mr. Fitzgerald's credit in our conversation, I think we came up with the term coach. So it's really going to turn in, strangely enough, after that conversation, our RIC director and I, we were talking on the way home, like, you know what, it makes a lot of sense. So it's a data privacy coach. That's what the term is going to be. And if we think about it, it makes a lot of sense. It's a guide, right? It's a person to assist the person in developing plans, helping them to communicate the plans, working on developing training programs so that we can effectively educate the staff on the do's and don'ts without hopefully bringing the educational process to a screaming halt, right? Because that's really what we don't want. We don't want this type of regulation to be so heavy-handed that we can't educate our students. Right? So this shared data protection officer will, and I'm not going to read the list of obligations you have in front of you, and if you want to ask me any particular question, I'd be happy to try to answer it. But we have our roles and responsibilities. right? So your person, your data protection officer is responsible for all these things. All right, so what do we do to develop a training program? Well, we have a variety of training materials that have been developed at the state level to share and talk through, and in time, and at certain times, maybe even help deliver the training to the staff through a faculty meeting on a professional development day, something of that nature, all to be determined. Okay. I don't want to talk too far past. Does everybody have the document? Or have a chance to read it? You don't have it? All right. I only have one copy, so.
It's in there. Yeah. Go back to your,
All right.
I
I don't mind reading.
no, that's fine. And it's up there too. You got yours?
I have the
Yeah,
table, I have the table.
Oh, there it is. Okay. It wasn't there.
It wasn't correct,
It's
but,
there now. Okay.
Yeah, scroll it down a little bit.
yeah, I've been looking.
Yeah. That's more of the detail, information on each part of the position.
I don't mind reading a few of them. Just to, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I suppose the story becomes, you know, look, as we read down this list of things, you know, one of the bullets is develop a policy. Well, there's already a model policy, so that's not a huge effort. You have an attorney, they're going to review this, they're going to make recommendations to the policy committee, you're going to talk about it, you're going to have a first read, a second read. That's not a heavy lift. Right? I think it's going to be more about the components and pieces, how we start to educate an elementary teacher, middle school teacher, high school teacher. What process are we going to develop so that when we go to select software, or I say software applications, online or otherwise, what process is the district going to go through to make sure that you know, a teacher isn't going out and doing something on their own, free or not. Believe it or not, the free tools are the ones that we're most concerned about. All right, because anybody can sign up for an account, create student accounts maybe, and we wouldn't even know as a leader in the building that it's being used. And it might be a great instructional product. You're required to know about it, right? And the parents are required to know about it. So a click-through agreement, if everybody's familiar with that, you know, we blindly say sure when we sign up for something. You know, are you going to read all the fine print? No. Maybe the teacher does or not. So we don't know what the company's obligation is or what they're thinking about sharing about that student. So I think it's going to be really about process, how we work through that. Do you know how many applications you have, not just the ones we install on our computer? Do we know how many we log into? How many do you log into in your personal life? Just think about it. You know, banking, healthcare, whatever it might be. The numbers get pretty big pretty quick. I can tell you in an informal survey internally, we came up with 652 unique ones. And that wasn't even a full number of applications that were being used. It was just kind of an informal survey. We need to get our hands around that. Now, I can tell you that within the Regional Information Center or at the BOCES level, anything that is bought by the district through those services, they're going to have the right language in the contracts. So they're doing things at the kind of the state or regional level to make sure that anything that you buy is compliant with Ed Law 2D. So you just adopt it, no problem. But there's going to be things that the district wants to use that aren't available through a regional entity, and there's no state clearinghouse at the moment for all these applications. So you'll have an obligation to inventory those.
So is Eric going to be helping with that in terms of going through some of these applications?
Well,
So, because I mean, that becomes, seems like a big burden for districts
It's a huge burden.
individually to do that.
Absolutely. So, great question. So, one of the things that kind of prefaced this shared data protection officer service, being a privacy coach, is a set of activities that have been going on for a couple of years. The regional informations across the state, centers across the state, pooled resources, and have been looking at some things like an inventory tool. And there was one that was built. It's not, it's been out there, and you can go enter applications as you come across them as a district, and if they've already been entered, you know, they start to be categorized. But they're not, it's not up to the NARIC or at a state level to bless an application for use or accept terms and conditions. That's your job. Okay? Now, when I say your job, the organization's job to accept the liability or responsibility for using the application. So, is there one central resource in the state? No. However, once we start working together, there's going to be a lot of crossover. So when you get an application, you know, I'll make one up, reading A to Z, whatever it might be. that's gonna be used by many districts. If it's not bought through a regional or a cooperative of any kind, we're gonna have to work through vetting that, and you would think that the check boxes, if you would, for making sure that the right language is in those contracts, we'll probably do it once someplace, or at least provide a template for what it should be like, and that's where this shared resource is gonna be helpful to you. As other ones are working with other districts and new things come along, let's kind of get some model contracts out. I assume the district has a contract template. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Does the contract template have the right terms and conditions to be compliant when you do an Ed 2D exercise? Good question for your attorney to make sure that you're whatever you're going to accept the contract at the board level. I didn't read your board agenda, but there might be one or two in there tonight. If there are surrounding student data, actually, and principal data as it relates to evaluation, that's actually another piece of language. Your language in your contract should reflect that. Okay. So, yes, there will be some sort of benefit, of course, regionally and statewide. We would hope that we all don't have to take the 3,500 instructional applications and write individual contracts for everything. It would be way too easy if the state would do it centrally. And in fact, there's other tools that we're looking at collectively to see if we can't better make use of the collective power of the state. But it's politics, right? It's giving 12 regions or 37 BOCES regions or 600 school districts to all do the same thing. It's a heavy lift. Thank you. Yeah, oh, sorry, is there another hand or another question? All right, so, the inventory part is a piece of it. And I think that's gonna be one of the biggest heavy lifts. Now, if we provide you with a tool, somebody has to inventory that stuff. I say somebody, the district has to. Again, I'm pretty sure you don't want your high school principal data entering application, so somebody would have to do that. And I think as a outgrowth of our conversation, what we're looking at is providing an extra resource, hopefully to this service. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but that would be more of a doer, that can actually take some time to do the data entry to help the district get there. That'd just be one activity that somebody else would do, but under the guide of the DPO and our shared service. I think the next heavy lift, and it's going to take some time, the next heavy lift is this obligation to comply with this NIST cybersecurity framework. And again, if you're bored or want to put yourself to sleep, you can look it up, NIST CSF. There are lots of controls. Some of them are technical, some of them are people and process. That part of it, I would hope that we collectively will be able to come up with a strategy, right? A set of questions that would lead us into that compliance. So that's where your representative and ours would be working together, maybe collectively with that pool of people that are engaging in all this, to really streamline those processes. It really is preparing for an audit. And I hate to use that word, but we have our audit committee members here. You guys know what a financial audit looks like. The same thing is really being put on the table for districts. So these 108 controls, they have to be met, and somebody's going to come along someday, the Ed Law 2D police, whoever they might be. I'm joking a little bit, but probably the comptroller's office, when an audit comes through from the comptroller, they'll audit a certain subset of controls, and you'll either be compliant or you won't. You'll either be at a low risk, a high risk, and you'll have to make some determinations at that point. But our goal is to help you work towards that end game, and it won't be in year one, I can guarantee you. You think about just what I just described, just this first starting point of getting your hand around inventory will take you time. But there's other things that we will be doing with you to help document and then eventually practice to make sure that the controls are in place. Let me just pause there.
Any questions?
I have a whole list.
Go ahead, fire away.
So, from listening so far, it sounds like we're still doing an awful lot of the work.
That's right.
So the question is, what is the cost around this collaboration capability that honestly we could probably collaborate without paying for it?
Who would you collaborate with? It's
Other
okay. There's a
people that are
good
gonna
answer.
have to do the same work as us.
You could very well do that. It's not a loose answer. We think that people don't have the time to do it, and by providing providing a resource for them to rely on and work with not just 5 districts or 6 or 7, but any of them that are part of our service. So, think of a user group, think of, just the act of coming to a faculty meeting and delivering a short training session. I say training, an informational session. Somebody's got to do that work. And if you're qualified or not qualified, capable and have the time to prepare for it and do it, it's great. Not every district will need this. But not every district is equipped equally with either time and resources to do it.
And when we initially discussed this, it sounded like it was like a third to a quarter of the cost of a person per district. But it still sounds like, I don't know, I'm not getting the picture that there's a lot of work coming out of there as opposed to bringing together a group of people so that that group of people can solve the problem themselves.
Well, fair enough. And so this service was never intended, if you want to equate it to a third or a fifth, it was never intended to be, you're going to be here on Monday from 7 to 4. That was never intended to be that way. That would be irresponsible actually for us because your work staff doesn't have the time to make use of that resource like that. Their business is in educating students. So I think that the way it will work is there will be certainly active engagement in district at times, possibly with the leadership team, possibly with teachers, other aspects of the business office even. I think there will be times when they reach out and they have conversation, planning sessions for whether it be faculty or whatever it might be. There will be times when we bring the group together to our facility centrally to go through a variety of exercises that will prepare them to come back to the district. There will be times later on down the road when we possibly engage in, for lack of a better word, maybe some tabletop exercises. How will we handle a breach of information? Now, our staff isn't attorneys. You have an attorney. You have a cyber liability insurance policy, I hope. There are things that are part of that collective set of resources that should come together and talk about what happens on the bad day that may happen. Hopefully never. But how are we prepared for it? So I would say to you, in response to you can do it on your own, if you can, and you have the time and resources to start to organize that, I would encourage you to do it on your own. But if you can't or don't think you have the time for it, then I think this is a good resource to share.
And I think this also brings into my mind our IT services outsourced, so where does that fit into this equation?
I think it'll actually help us.
For example, most IT professionals do inventory of stuff already. Do they do inventory for us? Do they not?
Not
Should
sure.
they be doing this service, or, I think there's,
Chris,
you're gonna have to really balance this off with other services we're already paying for.
Agreed. Okay. What districts are involved already?
We have, so far, we have one that signed up and is doing it,
Yeah.
Gloversville. I think we mentioned that at
Yep.
the meeting. We have 14 others who have actively asked for a quote for the service. So I think nobody is, remember, this is commitment time.
Sure.
So, and this is all for July 1. So the conversations we're having, maybe not at the board level, but with administration about their needs, this is the kind of conversation we're engaged with right now.
I mean, unless something drastically changes from here until next year or the year after, I mean, I don't say this entirely, but I think this is a service to get us in a direction where we should be, that we're fully compliant, and then I feel we can facilitate it from there. That's kind of my opinion. Now, where that falls, Scott, is still so unknown that it's a tough situation right now to even start to
And I don't think,
budget for.
from what I'm hearing, whatever administrator gets tasked with this, it's gonna be a percentage of their time, and that time already doesn't exist. So then therefore you need to be looking at resource for that anyway. And if you're gonna go do resource stuff, then I think you need to think about, well, what if we just didn't outsource this and we looked at the contracts that we're already paying and we actually did something different to approach this?
Contracts, meaning,
IT type stuff.
oh, IT that are already
Right.
involved, yeah.
I mean, at some point,
You can
it's-
talk to Liz a little bit, because they mentioned this, about not having your IT people be the DPO?
Right, and that's not
I
coming from.
didn't know exactly what he asked.
Good question. Even from the state level, right, all the way up to the state's data privacy officer, the conversation that has been had or recommended was that you separate the IT leader. Some districts have their own internal team and their own, let's say, director of technology. Others do what you do as far as asking for help and sharing that service with other districts. They've actually advocated that they separate that role from the IT directors. Now, in practice, will that be the case 100%? It wasn't like in law.
And some of the things on the list don't make sense to separate either, like penetration testing and a bunch of other stuff.
No, but you
that's
don't
very,
see,
very
right,
technical.
You don't see that on the list as far as, you know.
But that's my point, it's still something we have to go do, and it's
Yeah.
not gonna be in an administrator's time already.
That's correct. That's
So
absolutely
I
correct.
think we need to really evaluate this,
I think we do, and that's why I wanted to come up and look at the whole big picture. I don't want us to be 6 months into it next year and go, oh, yeah, we're
If I may comment on
Yeah.
your comment, it's actually a really good observation and something we've talked about. Actually, I think we talked about it in your office, was that, you know, the heavy lift, it will take a few years to be, I think, fully compliant. I really believe that. I don't think anybody will be compliant in 1 year. I don't see how that happens.
I don't think they even know what compliance will look like.
And I would agree with you there, and I kind of made light of it, the compliance police, it's not even defining.
There aren't any.
There aren't any, they're not even defining it. So the last thing I want to depict is there's some, you know, it's not the sky is falling, right, this conversation, this is an offer of a resource, right? You know, if you like it, you can provide it, but the comment I wanted to make was that I actually believe your statement is 100% true. I think the heavy lift in getting into this, kind of getting your hands around it, understanding what's on the table, at least from what we know. It could be one of those declining things, you know, that happens, you know, that we don't, after the first year even, we don't know what we don't know either. It's the very first year of a service. So we will offer this, kind of the way we've described it. We will listen to the leaders and districts as we go through it. We'll adjust as needed. I think that's the nice part about a shared service. You're not going out and necessarily hiring a full-time person. You probably can't, not unless you give up something really important. So this is our way of trying to at least help provide a guide, a bit of doing, depending on the topic in the conversation, and then following up and listening to see where we're at. And I think you've also got peers in the region who are asking for this service. They'll all have a voice in helping us frame what they need.
Has there been a conclusion on what kind of cost this is gonna come with?
We have, I think, did you get a letter from us?
24,000.
There you go. That letter came out. It was originally thought to be a little higher, but we thought about some of your comments, actually. They've already been thought of, and you know, we adjusted the price to kind of think we can handle with a person, if you would, more districts. So we have to start somewhere.
I know we use the word too much, but anyway.
Yes.
So,
It is.
Anyone else? Okay,
David, I
well,
think this is so new to everybody. I appreciate you coming
Sure.
up. It's a lot of talking that we're gonna have to have.
Yeah.
And then we can figure out, you know, where we go from there. And plus, also collaborate with me as superintendents and Marsh to see where people are heading, like the new ideas that they have as well. But we want to make sure as we go into this budget season, that we get everything on the table, and then we can decide what we need and what we don't, and what we have to go forward with.
I guess I do have one other question. This resource that you're looking to put together for collaborating with whatever districts join in, where would they sit proximity-wise?
Well, we serve a big territory, you know, from Catskill to Canada, to Route 30 up the corridor, all the way to the St. Lawrence River. So we have people in Albany, we have people in our Plattsburgh and Franklin. So we have two locations primarily, three, Plattsburgh and Franklin, Essex, Hamilton, BOCES, and then which is Malone, and then out of Albany. So that's where they sit primarily. I hope they're not sitting in my site a lot. I hope that they're out engaging and working with our district people, but there will also be time when they will be there, right? Because they will be working together, and they'll always be available. Here's the nice part about it too. You know, we may have a person who's designed to handle 5 districts in this region, right? Let's just assume it happens. But you know what? When that person decides to go on vacation and a question comes up, I hope there's 2 more people that can answer the question. You know, so when we get into that type of service, that's the whole point of a shared service. You try to at least try for that. So, and while I can't imagine a question that might come up on the fly when somebody has to take a vacation. That was probably a bad example in this case. But, you know, it's, hey, I'm not sure about this protocol, something's just happened. Well, this is what we talked about, and we can get you through it. So I think the answer is their formal seat, and then the Albany office. But we also have a nice relationship with the HFM BOCES, where we can have space if that ever required it. So actually we have staff, the technical staff that work out of there that actually serve you as well.
Excellent.
Yep. And if there's ever any more questions, please direct them to Mr. Fitzgerald, and I'll be happy to get back to them as soon as I can.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, well, thanks for
Appreciate you
coming, we
on.
appreciate it.
Thanks again.
Have a great night.
And I'm sorry, the BPO thing was down the wall with the BPO. So, yeah, I knew we had it on there, but I set up. Stay right back, Dave. Thanks again.
Thanks again.
Okay, so the next thing up is a report from Tyler. Take it away.
So to fill in from when I wasn't here in the last meeting, the National Honor Society held a fundraiser for Australian animals affected by the recent fires. And funds were raised to knit shelters for the different wildlife that had been displaced from their homes. On the 15th at East Hill, there's going to be a community dance, and the band Madhouse is going to be performing, and everyone ages 14 and up is welcome. The junior class is holding a fundraiser selling carnations Valentine's Day in support of the class of 2021. The theme of this year's Winter Ball was Winter Wonderland, and everyone seemed to enjoy themselves. They enjoyed the snacks, the music, and in the library there was a games room. And I'd like to congratulate Cody Haig for winning the championship in the position of Class 2 wrestling. And for the first time, I have a bit of a concern to bring forth on the subject of lunch. This is something that has been brought to me from the time that I had this position. People have been concerned about the quality of the lunch, the amount of fresh ingredients that are in it, and overall the upperclassmen have noticed a decrease in the quality, and this is fuel for us as students and for students who have a lower income, or this is possibly the only meal that they have before they go home and they don't have anything to eat there. The smaller portion sizes on Sundays is good for them, and I believe that a farm-to-table approach would be excellent, as it would be supporting the farms around us and also providing a healthier lunch and more substantial lunch to fuel us as we go for education.
And Mr. Patino's been working with the principal's cabinet to try to talk about some of this, right?
Yes.
And I think I talked to him about bringing the food service director in to, fill any concerns or questions. She would be the first person to really get in terms of know the inside and outs of everything, and give you guys some education too, at the same time help her maybe come up with different ideas, thought processes and stuff like that. She's very open, great to work with, so I'll make sure I follow Mr. Patino with that. That make sense?
Yes.
And we can report back out again.
Thank you, and I look forward to a report back on the progress of that, because it's certainly something that over the years we've tried to address through the wellness committee that we've had in years past. And it's very disturbing to me to see that students are feeling there is a regression in the quality and the freshness of the food that's.
For example, we used to have real grilled cheese sandwiches, and now
We used to have real,
grilled cheese sandwiches. And I know it might not seem that major, but when you go to lunch and all that there is a bag of a soggy sandwich, and it tastes very fake, to put it plainly. But it is a bit alarming.
Well, I think it's a serious issue, and I'm glad that you're taking it up, and hopefully we will have some progress to report in the coming meetings. We look forward to hearing about it. Okay, any other questions, comments? Thank you. Okay, the next thing we have is the 2021 budget, operations and maintenance is first on the list, so take it away, Gary.
EPC project.
Oh, missed that, sorry, EPC project.
Sorry,
Gotta
Gary.
stay till the end.
Still take it away, Gary.
We're in progress with our EPC project. If you remember, there were 13 different facility improvement measures or energy saving measures. And up to date, we have completed, we've completed the building envelope, the pipe and valve insulation, boiler controls, the walk-in cooler and freezer controls, and the window film here at the high school. And then what's in process now, of course, is the lighting. This room has the new lighting, and most of the high school, we're probably 90% done in the high school. The bus garage is complete, except for some controls in the office and in the break room. Next week, the gym lighting here will be done. That'll all be upgraded to LED. And then the elementary, they have started. The upstairs north wing has been completed and is all working with controls and all, and they're just moving through the elementary school. So the lighting is going well. The exterior lighting will be done when the weather warms up, which will, all the parking lot lights will be going to LED. Actually, pretty much every light in the district will be LED when we're done. And then they are starting on the facility management system upgrades. All the heating system controllers are being upgraded. They started running wire for the new backnet system upstairs at the high school. And they're going to start next week installing the new controllers. And then in the next few weeks, the water conservation part will be started. The plug load controls are kind of in process. And the computer management will
What
be.
is that, Gary?
Plug load is basically items like copiers and stuff. Where you plug it into the wall, they're controlled automatically to shut off at certain times. Okay, so that things aren't left on. And that, working with the IT department, will come up with schedules for those, and they do have manual override, so if somebody comes in the evening and needs to use something, they can manually override it for a 30-minute period. So that's how the plug load works.
Are there codes for people to override or any?
No, it's just a button.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's fairly simple. Yeah. And the idea is to save energy, not to keep people from doing what they need to do. So and then the computer management is basically the same idea, except computers need to shut down. You just don't unplug them; you have to shut them down. And IT will be able to send out to all the computers at certain times, depending on whatever the schedules are, to properly shut down all the computers that are operating after a certain time. So that's coming up and coming. It's kind of in process. They have to send out, find all the computers. Well, the program has to find the computers. I guess they've got 100 of them online now. So it's moving along.
Is that also our push updates and things like that also coordinated the same way?
Well, IT does that. It's a little different. All this is a shutdown command. So, but the IT takes care of all the pushing out. So, and then coming up this summer, we have to wait for the summer for a few items. One, there's 3 transformers that are going to be upgraded to high efficiency transformers. There's one here, and one at the bus garage and one over at the elementary. that are getting changed out. This summer, we're gonna empty the pool for regular pool maintenance.
On the transformers, are any of those the type that we might have waste issues?
Now, these are all dry transformers. So over at the lighting and the pool will be done when we shut down the pool for the summer for maintenance. And also the pool pump over there will be replaced at that time. And that's all part of the efficiency. And then the elementary school, the domestic hot water system is going to be replaced with a high efficiency condensing system. So that'll be done over the summer. And that's pretty much where we stand on the energy performance.
Before we get to any questions, I just want to review it overall, just so that we're all up to speed on what this is all about. EPC is an energy conservation program, and it's going to cost a couple $2 million for the whole implementation. But the agreement that the company made in order to take on the contract was that they guaranteed that the energy savings from all these things that Gary is detailing will reimburse us fully for the cost of the project, and that if it does not, they will make up the difference. So it will not cost the district any money at all for all these energy saving improvements. So it's really kind of a no-brainer, you know, and that's why we enthusiastically endorsed it when it was proposed. So I just wanted to say that in case anyone here was not up to speed on what exactly it was. So now, any questions? Thank you. But don't sit down because you're next on the agenda.
Gary, I do have a question, I guess.
Okay.
How is monitoring those savings going to work once it's all done?
There's a part of the cost of doing it. They monitor it for a 3-year period, and they quantify the results of the savings, and works with us. And they have it all written out, just how they can quantify the savings over a 3-year period. And then, if it proves what they say it should, then they're done quantifying, and then we assume going forward that the savings will continue. And we can ask, well, of course, we would have to pay for it if we wanted that to continue on. But generally, after 3 years, it should follow. So they actually do a study of it, and that'll all be in writing.
Thank you.
Okay, so transition to buildings and maintenance.
Okay. Well, you all have this. Generally, you look it over and I just answer questions. If you want me to go through it, I can do that. It's boring.
Well, what would people like to do? Just want to ask questions? Okay, so just look it over for a minute, and then I think one of the things I'd just like to ask you to talk about while people are looking through it is especially the areas of, where there's been increases and why they're increasing, and where there's been decreases, why they're decreasing.
Okay, well, we'll start right at the top. National Grid is our gas supplier, obviously, and Leah and I talked it over. She said that in the last 3 years, we've been spending around between $85,000 and $90,000 a year, and we had it at 110, so we were pretty comfortable reducing that, especially with the boiler controls and everything, which should be reducing our gas consumption. So we felt comfortable that we would be able to reduce that number. And then with the electric, of course, with the energy savings, we felt also comfortable reducing the electric budget. I increased the village dump. The dump fees have been going up a little bit, so I added 500 to the dump fees for the village.
Do we dump ourselves?
Now the village picks it up. Many years, we used to do it, and many years ago, when I first started, we would send a truck every day down to the dump. I figured out the cost. I talked with the village, and I went back a year, and all of our dump fees, we came up with an estimate of how many tons we were monthly. And what they have done is just charge us dump fees, because they go down there every day anyway, so they don't charge us extra. We're paying basically what we were paying just for dump fees, and we didn't have to send a truck.
And things. And
Right.
What, when you looked at our electric bills, what had they been running in the last few years?
I don't have those numbers on me. Do you?
I don't know, I don't have that information
Okay.
for you. I can look it up though.
Let's see, telephone, we increased, didn't we? We increased a
Yeah, and
couple
we were
things.
actually, the meeting before this, we were looking at this in the finance committee, and I think I'm gonna bring that back down. I'm not sure why I brought it up to begin with, so I think I'm gonna bring it back down after I look at it in a couple years.
Okay.
And,
People's playing too many games on their cell phones, that's the problem.
and the follow-up question on that, again, in the budget meeting, we talked about this, and I just want to confirm. The telecom cost, if we do the radio solution that we talked about last meeting or the meeting before, that would go away, is that correct?
The telecom is,
You said the three.
Is
The
this-
telecom is the little phones that the custodial staff has. I think what you guys were talking about was the transportation.
Radio,
Those
And
are
the other
different.
radios that we
Yeah.
have too.
Yeah, two different things.
And the radios in the district.
right,
Yeah,
right.
so would that decrease the cost for,
Well, the telecom is a cell phone, so,
yeah,
right. But we will look at that, because some of them aren't being used anymore.
Yeah.
So we'll look at that, and we should be able to reduce that.
well, we've got to look at that to see if there's any offset cost to it, yeah.
And if we go to this new radio
Yeah.
system, are we able to leverage that anyway for your guys,
Mhm.
besides the bus? That would be another thought, right? Because we're gonna make an
Yes.
investment in that. We've got that
I mean, we can definitely look
How
at
many of those you're talking about? The
it. Of the
telecom? Yeah.
telecom, we use about 6, I think. I think we have 6 of them.
Good.
So we can definitely look into
Add
that.
that in.
So, and then, well, kind of supplies kind of stayed status quo. Equipment and furniture, that's based on the teachers ask for things, goes to the principals, we talk it over, whether it's justified or not. And then I put it in the budget. So that number will fluctuate from year to year, depending on the requests of the teachers. On the contractual expense, that has increased this year because we have to go through lead testing again this year, so we have to do all those tests. So I increased the water testing up. So that's what changed that one. Service contracts stayed the same. Equipment repair, we've had a good year. Things have, over the years, we've repaired a lot of equipment and it's in good shape. I feel comfortable that we can remove, or lower that by 5,000. And then building repair, there were some items that I had that we're going to do this summer, but I had money in this year's budget, so we're going to do that out of this year's budget, so I was able to reduce next year's budget. And then grounds, the same thing, there was some, I had some sealing of the driveway, but we're going to take it out of this year's budget. And then that leaves us actually a reduced of 19,000, and we've talked about the purpose of that.
Okay, any questions? All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
And the next thing, we ask Wayne to stand up. And
Good evening.
transportation.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
You can come anytime.
You like that, huh?
Sorry. You can come anytime.
So the spreadsheet, yeah, this is what we have here, okay. That you have in front of you are things that I watch pretty much, with the exception of a few items. And down at the bottom of the first page, gas, insurance, electric, And then the following page is water, sewer, telephone. Those are items that I do not monitor. Leah takes care of those things. And of course, salaries and things like that. But just to go down through the budget here quickly, let's go down to line item bus gasoline and oil. That one there, I am requesting that we have a little bit of an increase there. Of course, we never know what the fuel price is going to do, right? So that I don't think it's as volatile today as it has been in the past. But we always want to make sure that we can pay that rather than having to dip into either another area or the general fund or something there. And but the biggest cause there is that we have more than half the fleet. If we replace the buses this year that we propose to do, we'll have more than half the fleet gasoline buses rather than diesel. And miles per gallon, of course, is yeah, on those. So that's the 2,900 that you see there.
Wait, can you just refresh our collective memories about why we're transitioning to gas versus the diesel?
Okay, the thought was, before my time, okay, yeah.
I can refresh if you want, because we sat on the committee, I think it was you and I, but I know I was on it. It was about the repairs that the diesels were requiring and how much time we were spending taking them to the repair shop and being without the bus. So the minimal difference in the fuel mileage we thought was made up by having less mechanical problems with the gas buses.
So we were impressed last year. We've gotten 3 new units. We were impressed because we had absolutely no problems with them. This year, however, we now have 8 of them, the 3 and then the 5 that were replaced. And we have had a bus gone every day of the school year to veterans. And the majority of them have been the gas buses. And not,
Have been, is that what you said?
yes, they're minor repairs, but they're under warranty, so they have to go. And so we are rethinking that just a little bit. However, we're a little bit fresh into it to make a jump back to the diesel motors, and we're checking out options as far as the diesel motors too, because we don't want to get into the same downtime thing with the DEF systems on those. So anyway, so that's where we are with the gas motors. If we skip down to driver's certs and education, I propose a $500 increase, which is actually very conservative, and the reasons are we have several new drivers, so we're going to have to put them all through a 30-hour course within the next year. So that costs, and then we have several of our drivers are DOT, we're going to take a DOT physical, and there's more of those up. They're biennial physicals this year. And then I have another one of our drivers that I've been training to become a certified examiner. Rich Rockwell has worked beside me and been an excellent help to me. However, he comes up with this bad news once in a while when he's thinking about retiring. So I've been trying to get a fresh person in place so we have somebody besides me there. So it's going to cost to get him his certifications. But this man has been training. The requirement is 5 students within 2 years. And so he's on his 4th. So he will soon need to be, have his certification done.
What's an examiner do?
Okay, so he has access to all the records, the 19A records, and he helps me keep them up to date. He goes out on the buses, does our defensive driving, which is done once a year for every driver. We do a biennial behind the wheel test. He can assist me with that. He can oversee written exams, however I normally do that. What else can he do?
That gives us a picture, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, for instance, this year was an audit year, and I had Rich go through all of the paperwork with me. So there was 2 sets of eyes. And I don't know, I submitted it, I haven't heard it yet. State makes me nervous, but anyway. Those are the things for that line item there where I raised it $500. And then if you skip down to garage other, this here is our lift inspections for the buses, our maintenance of those lifts. And that's probably, part of the reason for the raise, because we're dealing with 20-year-old equipment now instead of, it has been fairly new. So the last 2 years, I've had to, every time they come in and inspect, we've had to have them come back to repair to the tune of several $1,000s, usually on those lifts. And for good reason. I mean, they're OSHA regulated, and the safety of our mechanics and the inspectors and so forth. The other thing is the waste pumping. Last year, I had to become sort of a negotiator, I guess, when it came time to pump the waste, because they came up with a bill that was way higher than what we had been used to paying. And I don't know if I'll get away with that negotiation this year. You know, possibly we could find a new purveyor for that service. I'm thinking that they're probably rare, but that cost seems to be on the increase for that. The other thing is overhead doors is in that category. We have somebody that cares for those, at least on an annual basis. We usually try to have them come in the summer, make sure everything's in order. And they've needed some repair in recent years. If you turn your page over, then you'll see the line item contract maintenance here. The Transfinder software, that is actually the brand name. That's what we use. We use Traversa presently for the routing programs. We recently came upon a new provider for that software, and we haven't made the transition yet, but we're working pretty hard to make that happen because it'll be nearly half the cost of what we've been paying on an annual basis for that service. So that's the $3,000 that you see there. Our bus diagnostic software hasn't changed, but you'll see that the contract maintenance line item is decreased by $3,900, and that $14,100 that you see there is allocated for cameras and radios for the new buses. And so that's where the decrease is. We're going to be getting 3 new buses hopefully and 1 new van, so those will have to all be equipped with a radio, and the buses with camera systems. Now, both of these areas, that cost could vary because they're both pending changes. We're looking at new camera systems that are better quality and much more user-friendly, I guess, and more capability to be able to download easier, quicker, and get the results that we need. IT's working with us on that, we're doing some research. I've already done quite a bit of research. And the radio system, I guess you've all been versed on that, could change. The number I put in here is based on what we have been spending for current systems. Overall, our budget for 1920 seems to be working wonderfully. I think we're well within the parameters of what we allocated last year. Things were allocated a lot better, which made life easier for me. It seemed like it made more sense as to what was coming out of here, going out of there, rather than the way it was set up. So those are all the changes that I have, excepting for the van purchase, which we talked about last year. An annual van purchase, you'll see that up, second line item. And our need has not changed as far as the demand for an annual purchase. In fact, I think it's been more confirmed this year that it's necessary. We now have one in the shop, which is rare. These caravans that we have been very, very dependable. This one here, for some reason, has some difficulty. And then we have two other student placements, which has caused us to max out what we have. In fact, a teacher wanted one today, so I brought it over between runs and told Andrea, it's essential that you get it back here at 2 o'clock because we need it. So that's where we're at with that. We did get rid of the old one that was hanging around forever. Donna was using it for mail runs and errands and things like that. But it was in need of, gonna need a lot of body work or some sort of intention to keep it in one piece. So we did opt to put that one in the auction, which we still have then the ability to use the one that she uses as a spare unit because it is DOT inspected. But the one that Gary uses, we did have to take off an inspection several years ago. And so I'm expecting that was not far behind due to rust issues mainly. So I hope I've explained it well. Basically, that 18.5 though, which is the balance of our need of $25,000, is coming from somewhere else. I think out of Gary's budget, is that right? In order to make that line item there, so that we can go from there from year to year. So you're looking at a $500 budget increase for 2021, and your total there is $704 and $150. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? All right, thank you very much, Wayne.
Thank you.
Okay, and then the last thing is the support, general support.
This is the general support budget. It
Have a good
includes,
night.
Good night.
Okay, good night, thank you.
it includes, the Board of Education expenses, central administration, finance, auditing, legal, and it also includes Gary's budget, which we just went over. There's no real differences, it's actually down $3,000.
Why do we include Gary's budget on this?
It's just the codes, it's all the 1,000 codes, that's considered general support, just the way the budget's broken down.
Okay.
So I think the one thing we talked about in the budget meeting, in finance committee meeting was, besides getting to our actual run rates to be able to compare these things, will happen eventually as we get a little bit closer here. The other was, we talked last year about potentially just repricing our general insurance, so we put that on our list for this year again to kind of, because we didn't do it, and we have a broker, our agent isn't still in place, so we thought that we probably really should shop it this year to just make sure we're getting a fair deal.
One of the things that I just had a question about, speaking about insurance, is the thing that their spokesperson talked about was cyber's liability. Is that part of our insurance?
Yes, we do have that.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okey-doke. Thank you, Rita. You got off easy. All right, the next thing is approvals. I would entertain a motion for a consent agenda unless anyone wants to pull anything out.
I got, well, the second,
Which?
23rd board meeting?
thank you, because I can't, I just hit something. But yes, I
You
wasn't
were-
there.
Oh, okay, so we'll do, we'll do the A and then C through I, would that
Yes,
be good?
that's fine.
Is
I
that
just
good?
wasn't
Is
there
that-
and
Okay, could I have a motion?
I motion.
Second. All in favor? Okay, so we'll start with the January 9th minutes. Any questions? Okay, moving ahead, January 23rd, any questions? Okay, while you're looking, I have one. Jen was absent from that, in addition to saying he was present, we should put his absent.
Yes, I will,
Because that's not indicated.
hold that.
Anything else? Okay, budget transfers, any questions there? Okay, again, I have one. What is legal staff? Is that a good question?
That's the code, it's called legal, it should say legal expenses, it's just, that's what we said, legal staff.
I
don't
thought
have
we
a
had some
legal
secret
staff.
legal staff somewhere. Okay,
So what do we pay?
anything else?
And what did that come out of? Guidance? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it came out of a salary code that we had extra money in, so I had to move it into the legal expense code.
Does that mean that our legal expense went above what our
Mhm.
contract?
Yes. No, this is for physical advisor fees, having to do an EPC project. We had to
Oh.
pay them to do all the paperwork for
Contract
that.
stuff?
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
this wasn't our attorneys going
No,
above?
no, it's for
Okay.
fiscal advisors.
Right. Thank you.
Don't be surprised at that.
Well, they do have a pretty big cushion of
Yeah.
overpaying, so.
The first year, you don't understand calling a lot more.
Yeah.
I will the second.
Okay, is that it on transfers? Moving on to treasurer's report. Any questions there?
You skipped D.
Huh? I did? Oops, sorry.
That's right.
Well, a lot of skipping today. Bills, general, sorry. Any questions there? Okay, I have,
Go ahead.
three quick ones. Four, actually. One is 58-223. What is PJ Green?
They do our printing and our
And then 229 is Hodgson Russ LLP.
Yep, that's another EPC legal fee.
Their insurance firm, legal firm, I don't know.
Yeah.
And 297 Fiscal Advisors and Marketing, is that also?
Yep, that's the one that you were just asking about, what have to do with the budget transfer.
Okay, that was it.
The fact that we paid Bassett Hospital, does that mean we had an injury?
No, we have a contract with them to do our,
Physicals?
physicals
Okay.
and have a doctor.
Yep,
Yeah.
the exact position.
Anything else on warrants? Okay, seeing none, now we can move to D, okay?
E.
Oh, Jesus.
That's a rough light.
I'm getting more senile than I even thought.
Long ride home.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, anything on treasurer's report? I have one, and I haven't done any math, no math. But I did notice in the New York class of money market, general fund money market, we got $3,900 interest on $3 million, which was nice. But then the general fund money market was 2.9 million, which is pretty close to 3 million, and we only got 1,700 interest. And I was just wondering, why is that? Because that's like,
Because New York class has better rates.
well, I mean,
Because the money doesn't move in New York class, it's not like, there's no
In and out.
But in NBT, it's,
We're taken in and out,
Yeah.
so that's not the real
Yeah.
amount that was there the whole time.
right,
Good interest.
yeah, New York class amount is
question.
just sitting there.
all right.
It doesn't change
But I didn't do any
on a
math, so you have
daily
to, I have to do that. Okay, anything else on treasures? All right, now can we move to F? Is F next?
That would be good.
Okay. Any questions on that?
So I just wanted to confirm, this isn't a change, this is the way it's set up now, as I recall, right? Okay.
Okay, anything on that? Just for Pete and Heidi, we share the nutrition director with Fort Plain High School, which is Lori Brody. And we've done that for the last number of years, and it's been working quite well. And obviously, it means we don't have to have our own. It's been a good deal for us. Data protection officer, any questions there?
Sorry.
That's the one at
G.
F.
G.
Appointing him officially as the,
What is it that we're voting on now?
he's being appointed our district DPO. Remember the guy said we have to appoint by the end of this year?
Well, where's the price?
It's just for Nick to.
Nick to be it, we're not paying him anything at this point.
It's an extra title,
Okay.
like IT director.
Okay, because what,
CIO.
I'm sorry, the document that's in there is the same one we went
Yes.
over with
Yeah.
the other guy.
I forgot to put it down there as opposed to up top. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it was up top too, but
Yeah.
What was up top?
So- really all we're approving there is the appointment,
Correct.
not the contract thing attached.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
got it.
Now we have it on the books that New York State wants, they DPO in there.
You know.
Right, right,
So step one.
yeah. No, got that.
Any other questions on the DPO? Seeing none, we'll move to H. Is that right?
Age calendar,
Okay, good. Just want to make sure that.
you got it. See, we both made alphabet mistakes now.
We'll get it to you.
I have to go back to elementary school, I think, maybe even pre-K. Any questions on the calendar?
I'll pass through with the
I-
union, I'll pass through with the BOCES.
I did have a question, just looking at the calendar, I wanted to confirm when school starts.
The 8th.
Right.
The eighth?
Yep.
Okay. And the superintendent conference day is the first day for staff?
3rd.
Yeah, that's,
Yes.
okay. I just
Yep.
wanted to confirm that I was reading that right.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions on the calendar?
4 days of closing, where are we, how many do we?
3 days of closing. We had, I'm sorry, I thought you meant this year, my fault.
No, it says, it's 4 built in this one.
4 conference days.
No, for
No.
emergency days too.
Yeah, snow
I'm sorry.
days, school may be closed for emergencies up to 4 days.
Yes.
How many does the school year have right now?
Right, that was my question. How many do we have this year?
5.
We have 5 in the calendar?
Yeah.
So why are we going down?
Climate change.
Because of the late start this year. Next year, we all lost a day or two. So, Labor Day's late this year. So, we're still good though, still have 5, still have 4 snow days, it's 1 less.
We're comfortable going down, that's the question.
Well, we can always pull a day later if we have to, that'll be conference day.
Okay, so you've built it so you have an end of the year conference day that could be
March.
pulled? March, okay. I just remember one year we had to pull from a spring break or something and.
This year's really tough.
It
Labor Day
did
is
not go well.
Labor Day is usually it's 3rd, 4th, now you're not starting until the 8th.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, we lost, in Sharon Springs, we lost the Wednesday before
Did you?
Thanksgiving. Yeah.
And then we have the 25th graduation, opposed to the 26th or 28th, we've had the last couple of
Right.
years. It's an anomaly year for sure.
All right, as long as we have that contingency, I'm okay with
Yep. It's gonna be a good winter.
Not for skiers. Okay, esports, any questions there?
This is what we went back to last month, and we looked at advisors that aren't being used this year in terms of clubs, and that was the offset amount.
So, my only question on this is consistency across other advisors, and have we articulated what this role is expected to do, because it's a new thing?
Yes. I feel pretty comfortable compared to what the workload has been put into this, and would be going forward, that this isn't like a weekly meeting, this is, practices and everything else, so it's like we talked about in the finance committee, it's kind of an anomaly, team-wise, club-wise, advisor-wise,
Is this year round? Is that an amount for year round?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not starting this year, it's starting next year, or?
No, it's starting this year, it's just put a lot of effort
Okay.
into this.
I was just
Yeah.
wondering, 'cause
So, yeah, do you have the budget to cover it, because that's not in the budget?
This year, next year you mean?
No, I mean this year.
Remember we went back and we said which clubs we were
We're
doing?
getting
Oh,
close.
you're pulling it from,
Yeah.
that's right,
Default
thank you very much for
Yep.
reminding me. Yep.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
The other part of it, we had roughly $2,900 between the middle school and high school in unused software dollars set aside this year that won't be used, so that is more than enough to cover the student registration fees that we associate with the
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything else on esports? Okay, so I would, you can vote on A through I with the exception of B. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, B, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained?
Mark, we just need a separate motion for B, because it's
I
a
make a
consent.
motion.
Okay, motion for B, second.
was B.
Okay. Now all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
Jen?
And I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself with the esports, you were looking at the NOA for the kids, Scott, I was already jumping to the advisory piece.
Yeah, that's
So,
right.
I think we're talking probably about the same thing, but in
Yeah.
different places.
That's
I'm surprised, Tyler, you have nothing to say about esports? Come on, you're the youth around. Good buzz around, right?
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right, then we'll move to personnel on resignation. Treese Williams, who has been here for 25 years, I believe.
Yes.
Retiring. Any questions there? Can we do a consent agenda on the two resignations? Let's just do them separately. Okay, all,
You can do a consent, you can do a consent agenda for each of that if you want.
I think we need to talk about C at least.
all right, so let's just do the, you want to do a consent agenda?
Let's
on
just do
this?
A and B.
A and B, okay. So any questions on Patrice? Okay, then we'll move, first of all, motion on consent for A and B.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. So B would be Diane Potowski. Any questions there? Okay, so let's vote on those two.
Just did.
No, we just have to vote on the consent agenda, now we have to
Oh,
vote to
sorry,
approve it.
thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay. Golf coach. Christopher Smith, to appoint him as varsity golf coach. Questions?
Yeah, so the question is, we took golf out of the budget, so can you just bring us up to speed on what the plan is here?
The coach was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was put back in at the beginning of the year last year. That's what I found
I don't
out.
remember.
What's that?
Honestly, I don't remember.
No, that's not what was said. That was said was it was put back in. That's why we go forward with this. So they put the golf coach back into the budget. It's in the budget right now. I don't know when they did it, but it was put back.
He coached in the fall.
Correct.
Because there was a donation of somebody.
Yeah, we didn't put it back in the budget.
Donations are the fees. Donation to the coach.
I remember specifically that conversation, and it was said that the person would do it on their own so that the kids could golf. And,
We can shelve this and I'll get some more detail.
yeah,
That make sense?
yeah, I think we need to.
Okay.
I don't,
I understand your,
there was no money in here, that was my real question about it. Are we just appointing the person, or are
well,
we
you're
saying?
pointing, no, you'd be pointing that you was allowed. There's that position. It was in this year. So I'll do some more homework for you and report back out. Is that sound good?
Yeah, no,
And we'll shelve it until
I'll
next
bring
one.
my budget forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
we'll just withdraw that for now.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Motion.
You don't remember changing?
I don't, but my memory is not one that I would depend on. I'm sorry to tell you.
Okay.
I vaguely do remember, but I could be wrong.
I think research would be a good idea.
Yeah, thank you.
We're
Yes.
Okay, so motion
changes.
to table.
Table it.
Tabling Steve. Yes, motion.
Second.
All right, there we go.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The last three, can we do those as a consent?
And so,
Yes.
Okay, motion for consent?
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
aye.
Okay. Esports advisor, any question there? You good? Okay, long-term leave? Maternity leave?
Do we have a replacement or is that still?
Been posted. Yeah.
It's been posted.
Yes.
Any other questions?
What's her role?
Social worker.
I thought that's what she did.
You can vote it down.
Like her here. You can bring your crib in here.
Yeah, no. You have to come up with that, but how long is she gonna be out? Oh.
Okay, anything more on that? Yeah? Okay. Then we have the sabbatical request by Kevin Suttle. Any questions there?
We already discussed that.
That's all settled with the union, right?
Yes, we went through the committee, we went through the agreement that the legal wrote up for us, that's included in there.
Okay.
And I think we went from 20 weeks to 10 weeks, and we agreed that would be best for the budget, everything else, but also some of the benefit that we're gonna get from it for the social emotional side of it, and also the ability to use an organization that we, paid to come in, is gonna be able to get our services for free.
Okay? We all good? Okay, we'll take a vote on D through F, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Very good, thank you. Moving, there's no old business, we're moving down to new business. And I guess I would ask Madam President, potential President, to give us a report.
We are just looking to be acknowledged as our own administrative association. So we have a sound that goes with it, but yeah.
Okay, so any questions there? Just again, just for historical purposes, the administrators in this district have never had an association. We've always dealt with each of them separately, and if we approve this, then we would deal with them as a group. And so that's what the issue is at this point.
I know.
Some negotiations yet, that would allow.
Did we get a dance or something?
This is the acknowledgement.
Would you like that now?
Are they associating with the union?
No, to their own unions. But it's not nice.
Same.
So I guess I do have a question, because we typically have made individual decisions on how we treat people based on their results. So I guess I would ask the intent of this on that impact. Are they asking to be treated as a group that all are treated exactly the same?
We would sit down and talk in terms of contract language.
You talked a lot of.
We would sit down as once, right now we're just making acknowledgement, later we would bring it, we would sit down and talk about contract and so on, and how that language would be outlined.
So then, I guess, taking off on this question, so then part of that contract negotiation could be the basis for individual differences in terms of raises and so forth.
As a group, yeah.
Have we talked to legal whether this negates our individual contracts?
It does not until the contract is agreed.
Until we review the contract?
Yes. This is the process that Sandy's will tell every union to go through, get the acknowledgement, then go through the next process, but it won't be anything until we decide, until we finally approve and negotiate, the union contract. That makes sense.
So
Well,
right
that
now,
was my first question, is this, are they approaching this from with an associated union?
Yeah.
yes.
I thought you said no.
So,
No,
We thought you meant the teachers' union.
No.
Yeah, I think that's what, I do thought you meant the teachers.
No, I meant a union.
yes.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Any closing statements? Okay, so, the motion, I don't think we had a motion on this.
No,
You did?
motion to
Okay.
accept.
Okay, so the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Who made the motion?
I'm.
Oh, I thought you said it was made.
No, I just made the motion. I was
Oh,
saying
okay, so
motion
Jen
to
made the
accept.
motion, second Heidi. Okay. Now, all in favor? Opposed? Abstained?
Abstain.
What?
Abstain.
Abstaining. And you are?
Abstain.
Okay, so there's 3 yeses and 2 abstentions. Okay, congratulations. We look forward to negotiating. All right, so, is there any need to go into executive session?
Yes.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
I would entertain a 5-minute break.